Yo, 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 what is up, YouTube? BK Brad Kellner. Today is Tuesday, November 23rd, 2021. Hope everyone is having a great start to the holiday week. Hope everyone has a happy Thanksgiving. Hope y'all are getting to spend some time with family, friends, and hope everyone has an enjoyable Thanksgiving holiday. First video I've made in a while, first video I've made since the conclusion of the West Virginia game on Saturday. And it's not because I've wanted to neglect you guys. It's not because I didn't want to make a video. It's not even because I've been lazy. I haven't really known what to say, and I still don't really know what to say about this Texas football team right now. Like, I'm kind of speechless, and I don't know if I've ever been speechless ever in my life, let alone when it comes to talking about Texas Longhorn football. I did sports radio in Austin for 9 years, if you include my time in college working for KVRX, the student-run radio station at UT, and I always had something to say. I covered some low moments. You think about where Texas football has been for the last 9 years and for the last 12 years, some low lows, some bad losses, some heartbreakers, and I always had something to say. I don't know what I can say that hasn't already been said. I don't know what to make of this football team right now. I don't know what to make of this football program right now after the Longhorns suffered its sixth straight loss over the weekend, 31-23, the final in Morgantown against West Virginia. The Longhorns now 4-7 on the season. They need a win on Friday against Kansas State to avoid a 7-game losing streak and the first 8-loss season for Texas since 1956. They actually lost 9 that year. They went 1-9, and then they hired DKR the following year. Things obviously turned around pretty quick under his watch. Texas right now, once again, if they lose again on Friday, that would be their first 8 or more loss season since 1956, 65 years. So I've got a hunch that 90+% of you watching this video right now were not around for that 56 season. So you could argue this is the worst UT football season any of us have ever been a part of. And they've just found every way in the book to lose, blowing big leads, just the collapse against Kansas, the Morgantown game, right? Well, this time West Virginia gets out to the big lead and Texas comes back. They're within 8 points, 1-possession game in the final couple of minutes, and then Texas can't get the go-ahead score, or the game-tying score, I should say. It's unbelievable what this team is putting us through right now. So I didn't mean to neglect you guys. I didn't know what to say, and I still don't really know what to say about this Texas football team. And I promise the rest of this video is not going to be me talking about how I don't have anything to say. We're going to be looking ahead more towards the future, and we're going to be talking about Steve Sarkisian's press conference that he had yesterday. I mentioned I'm recording this on Tuesday the 23rd. Sark met with the media yesterday, Monday the 22nd, to talk about the loss to West Virginia and to talk a little bit about this coming game against Kansas State on Black Friday. Most of the questions were about the offseason and about where Texas football goes from here, and that's where my mind is. I think that's where most Texas fans' minds are right now. Would love to get a win on Friday. Would love to stop this losing streak, maybe gain some sort of momentum going into the offseason. I don't know if a win does that because you're still 5-7, which is very disappointing. But you send the seniors out on a high note. Sark talked about that a lot at his press conference. And look, I would like to send the seniors out on a high note. I'd like for this team to win a game. I'd like for my alma mater to win a football game. I have forgotten what it feels like to win a college football game. It's been so damn long since we've seen Texas do it. The last one for the Longhorns, guys, October 2nd, that win in Fort Worth over TCU. Now, if they don't win on Friday, we're going to have to wait until September 2022 to see Texas football win another game. It's already been too damn long. So I'd like to see them get a dub. Texas favored. I can't believe the Longhorns are favored against Kansas State. I know the game is in Austin, but K-State's 7-4 this year. They've had a decent year. I know they're coming off a loss to Baylor in a game that they were actually favored to win up in Manhattan last weekend. But K-State's been a better football team than Texas. The record tells you all that you need to know. I can't believe the Longhorns are favored in this game, guys. I really can't. I really can't. Just more on what Texas is than what Kansas State is right now. Like going into the season, I thought Texas would be favored in this matchup, but once again, 6-game losing streak, and this team just inventing ways to lose football games. I'm stunned that they're favored against K-State. So that might be my Thanksgiving gift to you, is taking the Purple Cats this weekend. All right, but once again, Sark's press conference mainly about the future. So a couple of noteworthy things that I jotted down. He was asked about the quarterbacks, and he didn't commit to a starter this week. Of course, Hudson Card and Casey Thompson both battling injuries. Thompson was wearing that little wrap around his thumb throughout the game, and on that final drive that Texas had on Saturday, he took a hard hit, landed on his thumb, and was down for a long time. Then Hudson Card had to come in, but Hudson Card had already gotten hurt earlier in the fourth quarter on the second-to-last offensive possession that Texas had. So both guys banged up. Sark did not commit to a starter this week. He said if Texas had played a game today, talking about yesterday, Casey would have been the guy. There was no follow-up question. He didn't elaborate on whether or not that was performance-based or if that was like Casey Thompson's just healthier right now and Hudson Card can't go if we had to play this game today, but did not commit to a quarterback. And that to me is not the story here. The second half of the answer Steve Sarkisian gave there, he said there would be competition at the quarterback position this offseason. And he was asked about, is Hudson Card and Casey Thompson going to be back next year? And he didn't really say for sure either way if those two guys would be back, but he also kind of hinted at maybe going to the portal to bring in a quarterback, or maybe allowing one of the true freshmen coming in. Right now, Malik Murphy, the one quarterback commit that Texas has in this class of 22. I think they're going to look at, I know they're going to look at, they are looking at other quarterbacks. I think they're going to sign another quarterback in this class when it's all said and done. So Sark basically said, or at least hinted towards, an open competition this offseason at that quarterback position, and he didn't commit to Casey Thompson or Hudson Card. He's like, it could be a guy who's not with us right now, and I think that has to be the move for Texas. I've talked about it before, guys, and I'll say it again. Look, 4-7 is obviously the most disappointing part of this year for Texas, but the second most disappointing thing for me is the fact that this team has not found a quarterback. We're entering the regular season finale, and Texas doesn't have a quarterback. Like, with Sark's track record, everywhere he's been able to have solid quarterback play, whether it's as a QB coach or an offensive coordinator, as a head coach. Like, that guy has had success with QBs everywhere. He's been coined a quarterback whisperer over the course of his coaching career. We obviously haven't seen that this year. Just inconsistencies from both guys all season long. And just when you think, oh, this guy got the job, this guy's good enough, he's our guy, well, he goes out and lays an egg. I mean, Hudson Card at the start of the season played really well against Louisiana. We all remember what happened in Fayetteville. Casey Thompson a couple of times this year. Like, all right, that's got to be the dude. Not the case. We saw it again this past weekend, right? I mean, Casey Thompson was great in the Kansas game, and then he sucked, for lack of a better term. That is the best term. He sucked against West Virginia over the weekend, and Hudson Card looked pretty good in his relief appearance. So that to me is like, it's 4-7. Of course, the record is the most disappointing, embarrassing, humiliating, whatever thing for Texas football this year. But yeah, the fact that, I mean, I was hoping by the start of the season we'd have the quarterback position figured out, and here we are at the end of the season with no clue. We don't even know who the starter is going to be for the regular season finale. We sure as hell have no clue who the starter is going to be week 1 of the 2022 season. And look, I get it. It's year 1. These guys are learning a new offense. Neither one of those guys had been a starter before this season. But it's still incredibly disappointing. And I don't know how you can feel confident in either Hudson Card or Casey Thompson. Like, we might hear reports this offseason about how those guys are looking good. And we might hear reports out of spring practice about how those guys are looking good. And, oh, my gosh, they've got the offense now, and they're so much better than what they were last year. Well, we heard good reports about both of these guys in fall camp this year, and look at what they did on Saturdays when it actually mattered. So I'm not going to feel great about either of those guys if they are the starter for Texas to open up the 2022 season. Sark has to look at the portal. He absolutely has to look at the portal. And once again, he kind of hinted towards that at his press conference today. Sark was also asked about other areas that he needs to address this offseason, and he talked about the offensive and defensive lines. He said they need to address the pass rush. I think, I don't have his exact quote, but he basically said, like, I don't know if it's scheme or personnel, but our pass rush was not good enough. In today's college football, with the amount of times teams throw the football, you have to generate a pass rush, and Texas just did not do that, and that's incredibly disappointing too. That's the word of the day. You can make that a drinking game every time I say disappointing. The defensive line going into the season, I think we all thought was going to be the strength of this defense, maybe the strength of the entire football team. And they weren't that. They weren't great against the run either, but the pass rush just non-existent for Texas. West Virginia, going into last week, had given up more sacks than any team in the Big 12 by a pretty significant margin, and Texas just couldn't generate anything against their offensive line. And you've got the TV commentators talking about how great West Virginia's offensive line looked on set. It's because Texas just doesn't have a pass rush. So Sark talked about that. That was the first thing he mentioned, and he also talked about offensive line depth. The offensive line part is right. It ain't the depth that's the problem. It's just the offensive line. Like, you don't need the word depth in there. Your starters aren't any good either. You just need new offensive linemen. And you're going to lose a few of the guys that you do have on this roster right now. I don't know if that's a bad thing because they haven't been great or even good. But those guys were your starters this year. And a lot of the guys on the bench this year are going to be back next year. Like, do we feel better about the backups than we do the guys who won the jobs and started this season? I don't know. So Texas needs to attack that. And Sark talked about there was only 2 offensive line signees in the class of 2021, right? The transition class from Tom Herman to Steve Sarkisian. That's obviously not good enough. And so the transfer portal, I think, will come into play there. Texas obviously has a couple of guys committed for 2022. I think they want to get a few more signed as well. So you guys know how much I love the trenches, or at least how important I think the trenches are to football at any level, especially this level. Texas, as the year progressed, it got worked at the line of scrimmage, both lines of scrimmage. And that's a big part of why this team has lost 6 in a row and sitting at 4-7 right now. Sark was asked about, position rooms that he feels good about. I think my man Chip Brown asked that question. And he said the running back room. He talked about Bijan. By the way, Bijan met with the media earlier this week. I can't remember if it was yesterday or today, but he said he's coming back next year, which, thank the Lord, that's great news. Hopefully they don't waste him again, because I expect next year to be his final year, and he's already been wasted the first couple of seasons because the team has had 0 success. But he's coming back next year, according to him, which is great. Like, I don't think that guy needs to play another snap of college football, and I still think he'd be a 1st or 2nd round pick in the 2023 NFL draft. So loved hearing that. Don't want to lose Bijan at all. But yeah, Sark talked about him. He talked about Rojo. He talked about Keelan. He talked about Jonathan Brooks. And that was the only position room that Sark mentioned. And he ended his answer by saying, yeah, I don't really want to go down the line. I don't think that's good for what we're trying to do here. And look, I agree with Sark there, but I also think that's the only position group that Sark feels good about. Like, if Sark had a bunch of position rooms that he felt great about, I think he would have given you a couple of more there. I don't know if there's any position group that he feels good about outside of running back. I don't know if there's any position group that I feel good about outside of running back with what we've seen from this team this year. So, yeah, Sark, I don't want to call it a cop-out, because that's like he doesn't want to go down the list. He doesn't want to call out some of his position groups, especially with 1 game left to play. Like, I wonder if he was asked that question after K-State, if he gives a different answer. But like he literally just mentioned the running back room is the only group that he feels good about, and it's hard to argue. It's hard to argue. Like, comment below, what other position group do you feel good about for Texas going into 2022? Because they brought in transfers at every other position, I'd be okay. I'd be fine with that. Sark also said he was asked about his defensive coaching staff. He said he's confident in those guys. I said it in a previous video. If Texas finishes the year 4-8, Sark's going to have to make some changes. Like, Sark's obviously not going anywhere, and most of this coaching staff is probably not going anywhere. You don't want to overreact too much to a year 1, but you can't go 4-8 at the University of Texas and end the year on a 7-game losing streak and not make any changes. Like, I don't think Sark's going to be allowed to do that. And he talked last week. He said, no CDC, nobody in the administration had talked to him about making any staff changes. But I don't think that's going to fly. Yeah, I don't think you can go 4-8 at UT and not do anything. You can't just tell the boosters and the fan base, like, hey, we're going to run it back. Same guys, same coaching staff. Everyone's coming back for year 2. It's just year 1, so don't worry about that. We'll turn it around. I don't think Sark's going to get that luxury to bring his entire coaching staff back. So he mentioned he was confident in his defensive staff. We'll see if PK's back. I think PK is going to be back. You could obviously make an argument that he shouldn't be with what this defense has been this season, but maybe PK gets the ability to choose his assistants. Right? Like, Sark had hired all of the other defensive position coaches before he hired PK. So maybe he lets PK make some changes to his defensive staff to bring in his guys and hope that that works. But yeah, Sark said he's confident in his defensive staff, and he talked about the resumes and the track records that those guys have had over their coaching careers. So once again, look, even if Texas wins this game on Friday, I don't think 5-7 gives you the ability to bring back all of your coaches for a second year. So that's something to monitor. I'll eat my words if I'm wrong. I hope I'm right on this, because I think there are some definite upgrades you can make on this coaching staff. But yeah, just a losing season, I don't care that it's year one. You can't just stand by. Can't just stand pat after a year like that. And then the last question Sark was asked about today, he was asked about just the circus that has been this season, both on the field and off the field, with the circus animal pole assassin story, with the Bo Davis video, with the Joshua Moore thing. It was a pretty long, good question. I wish I remembered who asked it. It was the last question of the presser, though. And Sark said, I'm built for this. He elaborated, obviously, but he talked about, like, he knew this job was going to be tough. He knew he had his work cut out for him, and he said that he is built for this. So we'll see if he's right. I sure as hell hope he's right. You know, it's tough to find reasons for optimism for this Texas football program right now. It really is. Like, the easy thing to say is, oh, it's year one, you got to give him time. But that doesn't give me a lot of optimism that things are going to turn around in year two. And if Texas is 4-7 next year, I can guarantee you there's not going to be a year three for Steve Sarkisian. So he knows that. There's going to have to be better results for Texas next year. They don't necessarily have to win 11 games next season, but they obviously have to show some progress here. And we'll see. Look, Tom Herman in year two went to the Sugar Bowl, won the Sugar Bowl, went to the conference championship game as well. Like, hopefully Sark can have a year two like that. That would be incredible. What did Tom Herman in? A lot of things did Tom Herman in, but the biggest thing that did Tom Herman in was he didn't have that linear progression, right? Like, average year one, 6-6 regular season, 7-6 with the bowl win over Mizzou. Then in year two, Big 12 championship game berth, Sugar Bowl win over Georgia, and then downhill. Bad year three, bad year four. That was it. Like, if Sark, he doesn't have to win 10 games next year, but he has to show like a linear progression if he wants to be here longer than Tom Herman was. And once again, they can't go 4-7 or 4-8 or 5-7, whatever. They can't miss a bowl game 2 years in a row for Sark to get a year three. It's just not going to happen. I don't care what the buyout's going to be after next year. It's just not going to happen. And you can blame Tom Herman for some of the things that have gone on this year, but you're not going to be able to blame Tom Herman for back-to-back 4-8 seasons. Sorry, not going to happen. So there you go. I think that's everything I wanted to talk about today. Steve Sarkisian's press conference yesterday, previewing K-State. But yeah, mainly talking about the offseason and what's coming next for Texas football. And that's where my mind is, and I think that's where most Texas fans' minds are. I'm going to watch this game on Friday, of course. I'll watch every game. I'll always support my Longhorns. But even if they win on Friday, like, what does a win on Friday do? Texas could technically be invited to a bowl game at 5-7. Texas better turn down that invitation if they get it. This season's been embarrassing enough. Please don't accept the bowl bid at 5-7. I don't want to hear about the extra practice. Don't accept the bowl bid at 5-7, dude. Like, this needs to be the last game for Texas, and then it is going to be one hell of an offseason. Stop me if you've heard that before, talking about Texas football. Unbelievable. All right, guys, that's going to do it for today's video. Thank you all for watching. I didn't mention this at the beginning, but please like this video if you've made it this far. Thank you very much. Please subscribe to this channel if you haven't done it yet. Tap that little notification bell so you are always informed when I release new content. And happy Thanksgiving to you and yours, guys. Really appreciate you guys, all of y'all's support of the YouTube channel and just my career in general. You guys mean the world to me. You put food on my table. Like, you're making Thanksgiving possible for me. So thank you guys for all that you do. And once again, hopefully you guys get the time to spend with your family and friends and watch some football. Hopefully a Texas win on Friday. But yeah, happy Thanksgiving to each and every one of you out there. All right, shout out to Last Stand Hats. I'm rocking one right now. The discount code scrolling across the bottom of your screen. Holiday season coming up. The perfect gifts for the Longhorn fan or just people who like to look good. This is not a UT hat. It's still an awesome hat. And I know they've got a new golf polo line over at laststandhats.com. So check it out. Perfect gifts for the people you care about in your lives. Thank you all again for watching. Happy Thanksgiving. Until next time, y'all stay safe. Y'all stay healthy. And hook 'em.